So Samsung's quest to make everything thinner than a fox on the M20 continues with its latest tablet, the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra, which despite its size 0 stature is a bit of a beefcake, packing an enormous and gorgeous AMOLED display and some pretty ruddy impressive battery life. Although as usual these days, not much of an upgrade over the previous generation, so if you've already got the Tab S10 Ultra, I wouldn't bother. Been using it for a good few days now, so here's my Samsung Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra early review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do subscribe, ding the all notifications bell. Cheers! Now the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra is one of the biggest tablets I've tested in 2025, nearly 15 inches, and yet somehow, bewilderingly, it's just 5.1mm thick. Although it's also still a proper heavy twat, so if you did happen to drop this thing on your foot, probably end up shaving off a couple of toes. The S11 Ultra weighs a marmoset's man bag under 700 grams, so certainly one of the weightier tablets I've tested. So if you are clutching it for a while, you will start to feel the old arm fatigue set in. This is definitely one for resting in your lap. But impressive how they managed to shave off another 0.3mm compared with the Tab S10 Ultra, which was already stupefyingly slender. And you might rightly be concerned that the slim finish might make the Tab S11 Ultra a wee bit flimsy, but touchwood seems pretty firm so far. That armour aluminium chassis is reassuringly solid, stretches all around the edges and of course the back end. It seems to be pretty resistant to scratches, etc, though I have had the keyboard cover slapped on it for a substantial amount of my review time. And you know, Samsung's design looks pretty smart, as always, although I'm not exactly going to set any hearts racing, especially as it's only available in two colours, grey or silver. Ooh. But hey, as with the previous gen, it is IP68 water and dust resistant, so if you want to play Wuthering Waves on a giant 15-inch screen while reclining in a lovely hot bubbly bath, job most certainly done. And pretty skinny bezels surrounding that enormous display as well. I was a tad worried about potentially balking the screen responsiveness when I clutched this thing, because my thumbs often strayed onto that display, but absolutely no problems in that department whatsoever. All good. Now I'm just going to chuck the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra back into Samsung's keyboard cover for the rest of this review. As you can see, this does tend to get a wee bit mucky, especially when chucked down on grubby kitchen surfaces. Just ignore all the stains, nothing suspicious on there, I promise. And this just kind of slaps onto there and then sticks there. Now when you want to actually turn on the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra, well, you've got a good bit of face unlock, which as you can see there, supremely nippy, works well even in quite low light environments. But of course the old face unlock doesn't work quite so well if I'm outside wearing shades and a hat to protect my baldy head from whatever sliver of sunlight is out there. But no worries whatsoever, Samsung's got you covered, because it's also bunged in an optical fingerprint sensor built right into the edge of the display there, so you can just slap your digit down on that and get again straight into the tablet. Works well as long as your hands aren't dripping wet or particularly mucky. And these scanners actually seem pretty rare on Android tablets these days, so it's great to see Samsung still implementing one. And then once you're in there, you've got a tasty bit of Android 16 with of course Samsung's OneUI 8 slapped on top. And you shouldn't have to hoy it in the bin anytime soon, because Samsung, as usual, has pledged 7 years of OS updates and security patching. And Sammy has slapped all of its usual OneUI shenanigans on here, including, yes, a shag ton of AI. Basically all the best bits you'll find crammed into those Samsung Galaxy smartphones you'll also find here on the tablet, such as the ability to summarize any website that you come across in Samsung's own browser. It's a feature I'm still highly conflicted on, as I used to be a journalist, but it is bloody handy when you're low on time. You can also translate any websites you come across, read the highlights out loud. You got the usual writing tools, transcriptions, photo editing abilities, which is certainly a lot more convenient to use here on a big old tablet display compared with a dinky smartphone screen. And of course you've got the usual translation shenanigans if you happen to be traveling.
Shenanigans.
Obviously can be a bit of a mixed bag when it comes to real life usefulness, but some people will of course get more out of certain tools compared with others. The best bit is you've still got Google Gemini on here, which is an excellent AI assistant, and the likes of Circle the Search, which can be pretty handy at times. And as usual, multitasking on this thing, absolute piece of piss. There's loads of different ways that you can do it. including simply dragging and dropping more apps onto the screen pretty much wherever you would like. You can get up to 3 apps on the go side by side like this. Otherwise, you've also got something called desktop mode, which allows you to open tons of apps, as you can see like so, and then run them in dinky wee windows just like you would on an actual PC. This can be moved absolutely anywhere you want. You can full screen them, you can resize them, and of course the Tab S11 can happily handle all of this stuff going on at the same time. And if 15 inches simply isn't satisfying enough, well, no worries, you do have full support for DeX. And I do also really like how Samsung allows you to independently configure that desktop for landscape and portrait mode. So when you rotate this thing, your icons don't go flying about all over the place and end up near the top of the screen or something. So lots to like here, although OneUI can occasionally be a wee bit bulky, shall we say. Occasionally an app can misbehave, especially if you're doing a bit of multitasking. But overall, to be fair, it's been pretty well behaved this past week. Bugger all issues with the Wi-Fi connectivity. You can also do hotspotting on the go. Otherwise, there is an LTE option as well, which supports physical SIMs as well as eSIM. You absolutely have to stay connected wherever you bugger off to. You got between 256 gigs and 1 terabyte of storage, and that can be expanded via micro SD memory card up to a further 2 terabytes. Now that enormous 14.6 inch AMOLED display is a serious highlight, even if most of the specs are pretty much identical to the previous generation. Samsung has slapped its usual dynamic AMOLED 2X display tech onto the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra, the 2960 by 1848 pixel resolution. So plenty of fine detail packed into every frame when you are kicking back with a movie. It's also ideal for a bit of photo editing, etc. Now, Samsung has boosted the brightness ever so slightly for this generation, but even better, the display is still anti-reflective. So as you can see there, fierce studio light beaming right off this thing. You can barely even see it. So I found that using this thing outdoors a perfectly comfortable experience. And thankfully that dinky wee nipple notch up top where you'll find the selfie cam barely intrudes on the action at all ever. The full HDR10 Plus streaming support as usual, crispy contrast, pin sharp visuals, nice poppy colours as well. So overall a banging display. And it's backed up by a highly respectable quad speaker setup as well. Again, despite the fact this thing is skinny, it can pump out some pretty beefy audio, reasonably bassy. And while there's bugger all headphone jack on the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra, the Bluetooth streaming's been absolutely fine. Now Samsung has bundled this tablet with the S Pen stylus as usual, which this time around sits neatly on top. There's no longer a convenient arse crack around back, but to be fair, I'm perfectly happy with it being sat there on top. I found that if anything, I'm less likely to knock it off than with the previous generation, but that magnetic attraction's pretty strong as well. The only thing is, if you do shove it in a backpack or something, it will inevitably become dislodged, so I just tuck it away in a separate pocket or something. As usual, this works perfectly fine for doing a bit of scribbling, or smashing out an artistic masterpiece if you've got any kind of creative flair whatsoever. But as with the Ultra smartphone's S Pen, it's pretty dumb these days, doesn't have Bluetooth built in or anything, so you can't use it as a remote, stuff like that, you can just do scribbling. And then there's Samsung's official keyboard cover, which is again pretty slim, so when you fold it all up, this doesn't add on too much extra bulk at all. Just even more weight, so it's actually not that far off a laptop now. Now the key layout is absolutely fine. You've got quite a lot of wasted space either edge of it, but because the tablet's so massive, the keys are a decent size anyway. You've actually got a double row enter key, which had me frothing all over the place. The function keys allow you to quickly alter the screen brightness, the volume, etc. You've got a shortcut to DeX and also 3 customizable app shortcut buttons. Unfortunately, however, the keyboard cover does offer a rather firm typing action, and that key travel is exceptionally shallow, so typing really isn't as responsive or as comfortable as I would have liked. I did sort of slightly adjust to it over time, so my typing speed's almost as good as it usually is, so about as fast as a geriatric alcoholic with knackered joints could ever possibly type, but not particularly enjoyable. It's just too rigid. Just a complaint that, by the way, your mum certainly never has. Just some of the usual complaints with keyboard covers, such as there's bug roll backlighting, which doesn't help at night, although that screen usually projects a fair amount of light out so you can sort of see what you're doing. And also the angle the screen is locked at is locked, you can't change it at all. It also can be a wee bit awkward to use on your lap, especially as, again, you can't adjust the angle of that display, though at least the fact that it's so rigid means that it does kind of sit there, doesn't flop about or anything. Absolutely sod all complaints with the performance on the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra, whether you're running several apps on screen all at once or gaming on the likes of Wuthering Waves, which plays absolutely beautifully even after you've jacked those graphics settings right up. And that's all thanks to Mediatek's meaty Dimensity 9400 Plus chipset, an overclocked version of the original silicon beefcake. I didn't even need to switch on performance mode while I was gaming on the likes of Wuthering Waves in Samsung's Gamer Booster menu. I just played the thing on the original balanced setting and it ran absolutely fine. Nice fluid frame rate even after a good hour or so of gaming non-stop, and the Samsung Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra thankfully didn't get too warm when gaming for a prolonged period either. So overall, it's a solid wee tab for any hardcore gamers out there. And Samsung has only ever so slightly boosted the battery capacity for this generation. It's now 11,600 mAh, which is still pretty ruddy impressive considering how skinny this thing is. And they bother at all because a full charge of this thing will easily last you all day long unless you're, gaming on it non-stop or something. Now personally, I've found that a 100% charge of that battery delivers between 9 to 10 hours of mixed use. That's with several apps all open at once, working side by side, usually in desktop mode. Always got a wee window with a video streaming in the corner as well. The occasional wee bit of video chat and all that good stuff. And I've only got the Wi-Fi model, so I haven't been able to test out the LTE connectivity if that drains the battery a bit faster. But I'm more than happy with the performance on this thing. That is working outdoors a lot of the time, by the way, as well, with that screen brightness boosted all the way up and the volume turned up so I can hear the video or the music if I'm playing a bit of music in the background. So certainly if you want something to work or play on basically all day without having to worry about plugging the bugger back in again, job done. It's certainly right up there with those Snapdragon X laptops as far as the battery life goes. Of course, not the nippiest, certainly compared with some Chinese tablet arrivals when it comes to recharging. You got 45 watt wired charging support. Not dreadful, but not exactly ultra speedy. And as for the camera tech, well, up front you've got a 12 megapixel selfie shooter housed in that skinny wee bezel with the little nipple notch just to give it a bit of room to breathe. So you don't have a dual lens setup like you did on some previous generations, but it's quite an ultra wide lens anyway, so no real need to have a second lens. I certainly haven't missed it. And this can capture you at 4K Ultra HD resolution at 30 frames per second if you do need to shoot any video with it. It's perfectly fine for your video chats. The microphones built into the Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra do a great job of picking up your voice even if you're not projecting particularly well. My only real complaint with this camera is certainly when the tablet is slapped into the keyboard dock like so. Unfortunately, because you can't change the angle of the thing, it is locked. That camera is often pointing sort of at the top of your head. You end up kind of crushed down at the bottom half of the display. You end up shooting an awful lot of the ceiling. You have to kind of lean really far in order to actually fill that screen a bit more. And then yes, around the back end of the Galaxy Tab S11, you do actually have a dual lens setup. You've got a 13 megapixel regular shooter and also an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle snapper, and I've got no idea what the point of that is. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a delicious wee nutshell is Samsung's fresh new Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra. And certainly if you want something to stay entertained or productive on the fly, you want something that's a bit more flexible than a laptop, then it will happily tick those boxes, although it certainly ain't cheap. Will cost you over £1,000, and that's before you even factor in the keyboard cover. But excellent performance and battery life, a banging display and pretty powerful speakers as well, so good for kicking back with your Netflix or whatever on the move. And of course all of the obligatory AI shenanigans as well. But what do you guys reckon? Are you tempted by the Samsung Galaxy Tab S11 Ultra? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please do box subscribe, ding that notifications bell, all the usual YouTube bollocks, and have yourselves an absolutely ruddy wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everybody, love you all.